We are back on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk 1180. In the first part of the show, we talked about Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl with Colonel Marzano, the Public Affairs Information Officer for the Idaho National Guard and the spokesperson for the family. But on the line with us now, we have Kate Killarian, and Kate is one of the organizers behind a website called supportbowe.org. That's support, BOWE.org. Highly recommend this website. It starts off with the phrase, leave no man behind, which I totally agree with. Kat, welcome to Taking Care of Business.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come on and talk with you and your listeners about Sergeant Bergdahl.
Well, and I appreciate the work you guys do. You guys have put a lot of work into this website. How did you get involved in this story?
You know, I'm a Pacific Northwest person, just as Sergeant Bergdahl is, and so it hit very close to home and had been following this from the very beginning. I even remember the day his face flashed on the television. I was just shocked to know that he was a prisoner of war, and had followed it for quite some time, and had finally come to a place where I was discussing with some other people who hadn't heard from him or about him, and they said, well, can I go online? Is there a website? And I said, well, you know, there's a lot of people out there doing some really great things, but I don't know if there's a specific website for this. And so I got online and I looked, and it was just really exciting to see what people were doing, but there was no kind of hub where you could go and say, okay, well, here's where I can go over to this group, and this group sounds like they're doing something I'd be interested in, or, you know, where you could find all the information in one spot. So we thought, well, hey, let's go ahead and do this, and this will be an excellent opportunity for people who are just browsing the web. They're short on time, and they can go right to this one spot and say, wow, there's a lot of stuff going on to support Sergeant Bowe Bergdahl.
Well, I was looking at the comments section you have on there this morning, and it was very, very touching. Some of the family members had gone on there and made some comments about the situation, and it's very heartwarming. I remember when I got out of the Marines and I was working for the POW organization. A bunch of us were sitting around the table, all vets. Some of the group were Vietnam vets, some were not, and we had different opinions about the war, but at that time, the Mai Gwez incident had gone on. And for those of you that don't know what that was, it was an American ship that was taken over in Southeast Asia. And to a man, regardless of how we felt about the war, we all would have put the uniform back on to go get those guys out. And I think that's the American ethic. And I was talking to a friend of mine about this last night. He said, you guys would probably still put that uniform on today if you couldn't go get them out. And I said, you know, you're absolutely right. We would. Yes. It's because it's just something we just don't, as Americans, we just don't abide by. There's just no way this guy should be sitting there for 3 years in a prisoner of war camp. No way.
Yes, it's going to be 1,000 days in less than 2 weeks, and he will be spending his 26th birthday in captivity on the 28th, and this will be his third in enemy hands, which is just absolutely heartbreaking. And we at supportbowe.org are actually organized a day of action and prayer to honor him on his birthday. And this is one of an Anywhere You Are event, so anyone can be involved in that. On that day, we're taking time out to contact Congress to keep him in our prayers and thoughts, and to tell other people about him, because with this, like you said, this is just unacceptable that this young man has been allowed to languish in enemy hands for such a long period of time.
Yeah, I can feel my blood boil just talking about it. You had an article on your website about, it was actually a warning. It was on February 28th. Why were you warning people about his situation right now of all times?
On the 28th, where we were just discussing what some of the things that were going on in the news, and just simply saying, you know, that there's a lot of activity that's going on in the theater at this point, and we just need to really, really work on trying to get the message across to Congress that if there is any negotiations, any discussion with the opposition forces that we need to include Sergeant Bergdahl in any of those talks. We can't talk around him. He has to be part of it.
Yes. We're having a conversation with Kat Kalerin from supportbow.org, a website designed to let people know about the plight of our POW in Afghanistan, Sergeant Bergdahl.
You know, I hate to tell you this. I would do anything to get him back, but I can't agree in trading 5 disgusting Taliban leaders for the soldier. I'm sorry to say.
Yeah, it's tough. I would say that there are probably a lot of things going on in the background that obviously we wouldn't know about. So, the military has made assurances that they are working with every avenue they have to bring him back home, and we have to take them at their word for that. Of course, we can always hope that more opportunities would prevail and that action would be taken to benefit by those opportunities and not miss out on anything that can be done to bring him home.
Yeah, and the flip side of that is I noticed on your website you were talking about the one Iraqi POW that was left. Let's see,
yes.
What was his name?
Yes.
Sergeant, Staff Sergeant.
Staff Sergeant Alti. Yes.
Alti.
He unfortunately he had been in captivity over 5 years. He had been missing over 5 years. He was, I believe, the term was missing captured, and unfortunately he did not make it back home alive, and he had just has been returned to his family, and they've recently had his funeral here in, I believe he's from Ann Arbor, Michigan. So very heartbreaking, very traumatic. I cannot imagine what it would be like to be a family member of someone who would be in that situation. Every single day it would haunt you. I mean, it's hard as supporters. We become so attached to the person that we're supporting, and to go through that, it's just gut-wrenching.
Yeah, well,
I can only imagine.
Yeah, in his situation, he was listed missing for 5 or 6 years, and the family got the knock on the door on February 26th. So here it is, for that whatever length of time it was. They thought, like you say, they thought he was still alive, and going through that, the horror of feeling that, and then all of a sudden realizing that he's gone.
Yes.
Based on the situation in Afghanistan today, I think even those of us that are have been positive for the war are now against it. We need to get all of our troops out of there safely.
We've had a lot of sacrifices, I can tell you that. It's very, very difficult because I think, even though there is, I would say, relative to the general population, there probably would be somewhat of a disconnect between the portion of our Americans who serve. There's a very large, and there is a certain amount of disconnect. But I think as time goes on, there's more and more people who know somebody who's been affected, has lost something through this. So it's hard. War is never good. It's never. At least, like they say, freedom comes at a high price, and the cost of war is always too high.
Well, and the way I look at this particular subject, this is just my own point of view. I don't care if you're for the war or against it. There is no way, and I repeat, no way an American soldier should be in a prisoner of war camp for 3 years. Period. End of conversation, regardless of how anybody feels about the war. And that's just my outlook on it. But I do have a question for you.
There's a lot of people that are share that with you as well, Marty. We have people working all over the country to try to raise awareness for Sergeant Bergdahl, and this is a really it is just a grassroots organization through and through, a grassroots effort. We've got people organizing using petitions. We have a petition online right now. We've got a family in Wisconsin that are trying to achieve 30,000 signatures by the end of March that people can get involved with, collecting signatures all over the country.
So, Kat, what else can we do in the short time we have left? What else can our listeners do? What else can our listeners do to help your cause?
I would say that the two things that are most important would be to tell other people Sergeant Bergdahl's story. Every day we find that people have not heard it, and they want to know. People want to know this. They just haven't had a chance to hear it. The second thing is to translate that knowledge into action and contact the members of Congress and other elected officials whose input would be relevant to achieving Sergeant Bergdahl's release. We need to remind them how long he's been a prisoner of war, explain to them it's very important to you that his rescue be a top-level priority. And then ask your family, your friends, your coworkers to join and contact their specific elected officials.
Great.
We need to have thousands of people doing this. Mm-hmm. They need to know that this is important to us, and I just say we need to do persistent encouragement.
Great.
Persistent encouragement.
Kat, thank you so much. And the website again is supportbowe, spelled BOWE.org. Kat, thank you for what you do.
Thank you. Please, to your listeners, join us. Come and find out about Sergeant Bergdahl. Everyone is important and can do something to help.
Great. Thank you. We'll be back in a moment on Taking Care of Business on Current Radio News Talk 1180.